Today's episode of the Camp Pupil Podcast sponsored by HomeNukeKit.com. Why settle for videos and diagrams when you and the kids can learn about and construct your very own working bathtub nuclear reactor? Enrich the included uranium ore right in your kitchen sink.
Daddy, my head hurts.
It's fine, honey. I'll open a window. Then fire up your reactor right in your bathtub and enjoy countless hours of fun.
It feels like my skin is burning.
I'm sure it's just your allergies, buddy. Do you have what it takes to keep the reactor online, or will you experience a meltdown and contaminate the local drinking water for many generations to come? Pre-order yours before the holidays at HomeNukeKit.com. Enter code CampUvalPodcast for your second kit absolutely free. The Camp Pupil Podcast. Conversations with interesting people.
Oh, wait, back up. And he was like, oh my God, you're serious.
This is really going to happen.
Yeah.
It's totally worth it to go after your dream. I guess I just want people to be inspired. That, if there's something you want to do, you probably can give it a try.
I only want genuine interaction because I don't know how much time I have here. Maybe that's my own mortality.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like 41 years old and
Yeah.
I think a lot about death because I talk about it every day. That's probably why.
Well, that's true. I mean, you are forced to... Thanks for coming back to the Camp Pupil Podcast for episode 2. Today I'm talking to Elizabeth and Nicholas Stockhauser. This is a lovely couple that I think are going to end up becoming serial entrepreneurs. We'll see. Time will tell with that one. They brought their adorable 3, actually at this point probably 4-month-old baby. And of course, I'm not going to edit the baby sounds out because they're adorable. So you're going to notice a little bit of handing the baby back and forth and trying to quiet her down. She was actually incredibly quiet and so patient with us, given the amount of time we made her spend sitting on the porch. But anyways, like I said, thanks a lot for listening, and hope you enjoy this conversation. Okay, so the way this came to be was pretty simple. I just saw your shop for, I guess, for a year or so. It was probably a year ago that I first noticed it, and I was just like, "Is that seriously an alteration shop in the middle of this super old industrial park?" And I kind of glanced at the sign. I'm like, "Yeah, probably not." And then I don't think I even looked on my way out that day. It was like a month later that I drove by it again, and I'm like, it is like there's a story there on like how this alteration shop ended up in this industrial warehouse park in this cute little brick building. And so that was basically just what put the idea in my head of like, but there's a story there. And that was way before I even talked to anyone about starting a podcast. So I was just curious in my own head, like what the story was behind that place. So then we just started talking after I left you the little note.
Yeah, that note was adorable. I was like, oh my gosh. He just taped a note on our door.
Yeah, it was all I had handy. So I was just like ripped the sheet off and I was like, well, I'll use this.
Yeah, and that he just wanted to meet up and talk about our story and how we started the business. Yeah, so I think the natural starting point, of course, is we'll go back to, since you learned to sew in 4-H, you were telling me. Mm-hmm. We'll go back to that. Yeah.
So what age are you when you start participating in 4-H at all?
So you can be as young as 5 to 8
okay.
is kind of like our pre-4-H sort of program. They call it Clover Buds. And then regular 4-H starts at 8 to 9 years old until 18. And you can take any kind of project there. There's lots of animal projects, lots of general projects. Like I did home ec projects like sewing and cooking. I did some woodworking projects, vet science projects, all kinds of stuff.
But both parents were involved with a lot of your projects, or was one more than the other?
So I mostly did my projects on my own. Okay. And then, my parents supporting me as far as like getting me going, taking me where I need to go. Mm-hmm. And then now my mom is a 4-H advisor for our club, and I'm actually an advisor too, and Nick is as well.
Yep.
So maybe it'll be around for when Zelly is older.
Right. Yeah, that's super cool. We actually participated with one club for 1 year, and the kids did rabbits.
Okay, what club were you in?
And what is it called? It's a real small one local here. Carrot Crunchers.
Okay, yeah, they do rabbits.
Yeah. And then we ended up deciding, when COVID cranked up, we stopped going, and then the kids decided that they wanted to try a different club, and we have yet to really put the effort into figuring out which new club.
Yeah,
we're
maybe you
give
should
a try.
come see ours.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe we'll bring them out.
Wonders of the world, and we meet at my parents' house in Bethel most of the time.
Okay.
So
Neat. Yeah, I'll have to remember that one.
yeah,
When I edit this, that'll be my reminder. Oh yeah, make a call about that.
yeah.
Nice. So you did the sewing project. You probably didn't think at the time that this is what I'm going to do for a living someday. Right? Like that.
Not at all.
You just enjoyed it though, obviously.
I mean, I was definitely average as far as sewing ability, fashion sense. I don't even think I had a fashion sense till I was 15 or 16. I'm like, how did I get in this industry? But it's what I knew how to do. And I guess I had gotten to a point where I was a little bit disenchanted with being an employee. So I thought, it's going to be easier if I just start my own business. Like that would be easier. Of course.
And were you sewing? For somebody else at that point? Or were you doing something totally different?
I had done some other jobs. I first started out as a veterinary assistant. I worked for Dr. Liming in Bethel. He has Rolling Hills Veterinary Service. I was his second employee.
No kidding.
And he was amazing. I learned so much about small business from him and startups. And but ultimately, there's not a huge future as a vet assistant. And I was also kind of ready to go explore other things. So turns out I ended up getting a nanny job, which opened up my schedule to go to some events where I met Nick and ended up getting married. So that might have been part of the grand design of the whole thing. And, Dr. Liming and Dr. Patchell and I are still friends.
Yep.
So
that's what you were doing when you guys met and got married then? Was you were still doing that, the veterinary stuff? Or
I was actually a nanny when we met.
So the nanny happens first.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Then you guys meet with your freed up social time.
Right. Yeah.
And so how long do you continue doing the nanny stuff?
Yes.
Past that?
So I nannied for 3 years. Nick and I dated for 3.5 years.
Okay.
And in the middle of us dating, the mother decided to stay home. So then I kind of lost that job.
Yeah.
I was also doing senior care and working on sewing at night. So I was working 7 days a week.
Gotcha.
And at nights. And
this is just word of mouth at that point, the sewing? You just got people kind of know that you do it?
Actually, Nick was doing a little bit of marketing.
Okay.
And at that time.
You were already reaching out at that point.
Yeah.
And I was trying to do this out of my third-story apartment in Clifton,
Yeah.
And people were going up the stairs, and I also had roommates. I'm like, how do you get a startup off the ground? It's so hard because you don't have a lot of money, and you don't know if your idea is going to work, and you don't want to get sunk.
Well, of course. The temptation is there to just grab a credit card and just start spend. I'm going to grow this thing.
Right.
But no, if you're smart about it, no, you're going to grow it slowly and get a little money coming in. And the mother of this nanny job decided to stay home, so they didn't really need a nanny. And then the lady I was caring for passed away, and then I didn't have any job at all. Goodness.
And I said, okay, well...
Yeah, what's next?
What's next? So we thought, maybe I'll just take a chance to focus on the sewing thing, see if I can get it off the ground. Turned out that was kind of slow, and there were definitely days where I didn't have any work to do at all, and I was sitting on couch, trying to do marketing,
Right,
wondering if I made a good
just
decision.
Trying to fill your time productively.
Yeah, and it's a little scary. Like, did I make a good decision? Should I really have a job? And then, then it turned out that a temporary nanny position opened up with the cousins of the family I was with before. And so I thought, well, what I got to lose, make a little bit of money for a few months, and then maybe this will be better. And that's kind of what happened, but it got so busy I couldn't handle both jobs.
Yeah.
We were really busy
which is a good problem to have, honestly. I mean, when you're trying to grow a business.
Yeah.
It's very frustrating that you get to where you don't have enough time to do everything.
Yeah.
But it means the business is growing. So it's exciting. Because you're like, wow, I don't know where the line is where I quit and go all in on this, but I know we're tiptoeing closer to it. Mm-hmm. So that's exciting.
Yeah. And so when the nanny job was wrapping up, I was like, thank goodness. This is definitely one thing too many. Yeah. I am too old for this. I want one job. Yeah. I also worked at the Renaissance Festival in the fall. So I was thinking...
And that's all consuming when it's happening.
Yeah, it's 9 weekends, Saturday and Sunday, and Labor Day as well. So that's like your whole social life for 2 months. And I didn't do it this year because I have a baby now.
Yeah. So. Yeah, babies will consume the time.
Yeah.
And actually, as a toddler and an adolescent, they will continue to absorb your time.
So with the business, I think I definitely had a stage of maturing with it, right? Because I kind of left the employee atmosphere to work for myself because I thought it would be easier. And it turns out you still have workplace problems. You're just in charge of them. And so you realize when things are uncomfortable, they're like, oh no, everybody's looking at me. They want me to make a decision. Right. Yeah. So if something comes up with an employee or something comes up with a client or someone's upset, like, you're the one they call. But in the beginning, when I wasn't really busy, I was like, oh, I can just flex my time, which is true. You can flex your time, but I was flexing more than I was working back then. Right. Now I didn't get a maternity leave because I had to go back in the second week. Yeah. Like, it's just too much. It's waiting on you. Now it's a real business. It's really working out, and now I'm working all the time. Of course. And how many employees now? Problem. So now we have 5 employees. I think we've got like a receptionist that is more like an office manager, and she's training for sewing as well. So she kind of got hired on as an apprentice. She wants to sew, or is it more that you just need another sewer? So it's just well, both, because it's really hard to just make a post on Indeed and then find somebody that does all of the sewing things that we need them to do. Like with wedding dresses, there's a lot of things, like you need to be able to put it back together the way it was before. It needs to look like it came from the store. So it's more of an apprentice program, really. Yeah. You just need somebody who's able to learn to do what you do. Yeah. How long does it take you roughly to bring someone up to speed to where you feel like, okay, you're now as productive as me? Oh, wow. Yeah. So I would say a few months, but it definitely depends on the person. Nick's shaking his head like, no, it's more than a few months.
We haven't done it yet,
So this is our first. You're still stepping through the process.
Yes.
Yeah, so we hired most of these people this year because when I was pregnant with Zelly last fall, so actually Nick and I got married in June of 2020, then I got pregnant right away. So then we had to decide, are we going to close this business? Are we going to make it bigger? Because we can't do what we're doing. Yeah. Because I was doing everything. Yeah. So, Zelly was really the catalyst, and just, are we going to become something real here?
She gave you the push that you needed.
And
to go all in.
Yeah, once you have one employee, it starts getting easier to hire more because you start developing that process.
Yeah. That makes sense. You probably get better at hiring as well as training and managing.
Right.
You're getting better and better at it.
So less than a year ago, we were running the whole business off of my personal cell phone, our personal computer. I was doing every phone call, every email, every appointment, and sewing almost every project, right?
Yeah.
So you're really limited.
You've got probably a pretty clear line in the sand of like, this is how much work I can take on.
So then but I'm super terrible at that. So then I get too much work and I'm working all night and like.
Right. You're in a business where you really can't miss deadlines.
No,
it's not an inconvenience phone call.
It's bad form to miss someone's wedding when you have their dress.
Exactly. Yeah, that's there's not many businesses with less forgiving timelines.
No,
than somehow servicing the wedding industry.
Yeah, but I haven't missed a wedding. We have a system in place to make sure that we only take what we can finish in time.
Right.
Yeah.
And as I guess as long as you're not in too deep. Okay, a late evening once in a while doesn't kill anybody. You just you put in that extra long day because it's down to the wire on this one, but that's not the end of the world.
And then sometimes like I say I'm a big softie, but I also have a little bit of a heart for girls that can't get in anywhere, and I'm like, I want you to look pretty on your wedding day, and take a few extra and do a little overtime so that some more girls can have actually a nice wedding dress. So
what you've now have you got 3 people sewing or 4?
Let's see. We have 2 senior seamstresses, and then we have 2 junior seamstresses plus the apprentice and an in-office nanny.
Yep.
And then myself. Nick's pointing at me like you sew too.
Are you still sewing a decent amount still when necessary?
Yeah, when necessary. And I mean, I really want to keep it up. I've noticed that now that we have all the stations full with other staff members, I'm more like moving around and making sure that the quality control is still there. Yeah. Because one thing that you have when you're just by yourself is everything is up to standard. When you're bringing more people on and everybody comes from a different background, everybody learned in a different method.
Yeah, we all have a different threshold.
And you're trying to,
is it good enough?
Yeah, you're trying to put out something that's the same for everybody. Yeah. Somebody needs to be in charge of that. So that's me. Yep. And I'm training.
Yeah, it makes sense that you would want to stay in practice because if it's all going to be to your standard, well, you should keep your skills up.
So I should, I definitely try to get out a dress now and then and do the work so that I am practiced in doing it and I can be a better teacher because I keep it up.
Of course. Yeah, that's a difficult role. Training people to do a job. That is so much harder than doing the job itself.
It is so hard. And, like not everybody is a good teacher. And I would probably say I am not a good teacher. So, but you know what? When you're in business, you end up doing a lot of things that you're not good at, like taxes and payroll and finances and QuickBooks and a lot. I thought I'm just going to sew and that's going to be fun, but it turns out I'm also doing things I don't know how to do very well, might not be my forefront skill set, but I'm just having to learn it. And you can learn how to be a good teacher if you're willing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No one's incapable of learning to be a teacher.
Mm-hmm. You just have to be humble and realize that, you might not be doing a good job all the time. I have to ask my staff members, am I teaching this well? Am I demonstrating enough or not enough? Right. Am I talking too much? Too much at once?
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I think you just have to be open to making mistakes. Which is no different than most jobs. That like as long as you're not too hard on yourself, it's not that big of a deal to be like, oh, I guess I didn't explain that very well, or I guess I told you wrong. My bad. Yeah. That was my screw up, and whatever.
When I worked for Dr. Limeen, he said, if you make a mistake the first time, I consider it to be my fault for not training you.
Yeah.
And then after that,
that's a good way.
Your problem that you made the mistake because you were paying attention to the training. Right? But I thought that was really nice. I was like, okay, just give me a chance to learn the job. And I want to have that for my staff too.
Of course.
Yeah.
So how much work are you all doing together right now compared to like what you had maxed out on when you were working alone?
I'm going to say that we kind of maybe quadrupled our capacity this year.
So it's efficient then.
Yeah.
You brought all these people
better.
on and you're getting a lot of work done.
Yeah.
I actually have a good example of how much, because I was just telling this story to one of our employees yesterday. She used to, when she was working out of her apartment and all that, she used to use this one rack to hold all the clothes.
Okay.
And it like all the incoming clothes.
Right.
Now,
just everything that you're in possession of right now.
Now she uses that rack, and it's as a like, oh, this is what we're doing this week.
Yeah.
And then
there are other racks of stuff you're in possession of.
Now we have about five racks.
Wow.
Of stuff. So that's obviously some of it's coming in the future, but still it's a great example to show like, okay, 5 times as many clothes.
Yeah. It's good to have a visual to be like roughly, because otherwise it's just numbers on a page.
I know that poor clothing rack, it was $13 at Walmart.
Yeah.
And it's probably not the thing for the job anymore. It's my first clothing rack, right? And if you put 8 wedding dresses on it, it falls over. It's just not really the thing for the job anymore. But like my very first one, I still have my grandma's sewing machine that I started with.
Oh, that's great. Are you still using it?
I use it sometimes. It's an old Kenmore's. It's heavy. It can do jeans and stuff like that. But it's also older. It doesn't have the finesse.
Okay.
So it doesn't do a wedding dress super pretty, but I kind of hang on to it.
Yeah, of course.
I have some domestic Viking sewing machines that I use for a lot of wedding dresses and so a little bit of embroidery, and then we're getting some industrial machines to kind of be up with the times and really be able to put out like good content quicker.
Yeah.
That's what people are doing.
Excellent. So Nick, sounds like you were instrumental, of course, in helping with the marketing side as you guys made your push. For this to become a big deal. So where did you learn all this?
A lot of things that I kind of learned on my own. A lot of things I just had really good mentors on.
Okay.
Went to school at Xavier for economics, international business.
Okay.
So nothing to do with marketing or entrepreneurship.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I actually was one of those people that didn't really know what I wanted to do.
Okay.
I just thought, econ's cool. Okay, international business is cool.
Yeah. But it seems like a flexible enough.
Exactly.
That like, you can probably go 8,000 different directions with this degree. So,
Oh yeah, exactly.
So it seems marketable.
Get those soft skills.
So that's your marketing background.
Exactly.
Is you were thinking about making yourself marketable.
Exactly. And I think the real big thing is I ended up taking a digital marketing course in my last semester of college. Okay. And just found, I really love this. I also was talking to recruiters, and I was like, or not recruiters, but a potential job, candidate or a company that was looking for marketers. And I was always the type that really liked the analytical side, but also the strategic, psychological side of things. Yeah. And so I thought, wow, digital marketing is sort of that union between the two. Because with digital marketing, you're able to take the data and you're able to capture from like online like websites and all that stuff, and then also take your human psychology. Oh, this messaging might work the best. To capture this lead, and you kind of put those two together, and it's like, wow, this is awesome. I don't know how familiar you are, but it's like a good example is like, hey, we can run an A/B test where we send 50% of users this type of ad, and 50% this other type of ad. And then you can see which ones.
Yeah, you can see in real time the effect that you're having.
Exactly. Oh, okay. The ad B was 15% more likely to result in a contact submission.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Let's go with that one. Okay, let's do it again. Another A/B test.
Yeah.
So that's kind of stuff. Oh, wow. So always learning.
Yeah.
And always asking, okay, what can we do better?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really summed up a lot of what I've, been able to try to help Elizabeth with and other businesses with.
Yeah.
Is how can we make this better?
Yeah.
You know? So with Elizabeth, I mean, I'll just fill in some of the pieces. She was originally working out of her third floor apartment. I mean, one of the big problems was people had to walk up 3 flights of steps.
Yeah.
And so they were huffing and puffing.
So that doesn't make the best impression.
No.
When they come to drop off a dress.
Exactly. And originally we didn't have as much of she didn't have as much of a focus on the website.
Yeah.
But when I came in there, I said, well, if you don't have as professional of an environment, or like a storefront on the road, how are people going to find you? Well, let's make a website. Let's emphasize this really good professional digital, presence.
Yeah.
And then that will help draw the people in. And thankfully, not a lot of seamstresses have that higher.
That makes sense. So that's just one of the easiest ways, I guess, or one of the longest levers you can pull as far as separating yourself from the crowd.
Yeah, not a lot of them do digital marketing, and it's just an older business. You know what I mean? Like, you don't need to usually do that. And so, for her to kind of break in that market, it was like, okay, let's really up your online, game here.
Yeah,
and find people. And also, she was working out of her apartment, so it's not like she could put a sign out in front of her business.
Yeah.
And so it was always asking, like, what's next? Oh, okay, we want to hire people. Well, we can't have people. There's not enough space in our apartment, so we need a storefront. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's one step at a time as you're.
Yeah, of course. Mm-hmm. And you're not moving up prematurely then by doing it that way.
Well,
you're just waiting till you actually need the space.
Yep, exactly. So she was full time in her apartment, and then once we proved the concept, I think that's another really important thing too, is proving the concept, developing a process, getting enough, honestly, business, right, to pay the bills. If you're gonna.
So I had to move to that storefront you found us in.
Yep.
When I was starting to create traffic in a residential area. I mean, tons of people sew out of their home.
That makes sense.
But
at a point.
At a point, it's rude.
Yeah. I mean, you're aggravating neighbors and
who were all accommodating. God bless them.
Is this girl dealing drugs out of her apartment? Who
are
all these visitors
with their wedding dresses?
So, and you want to save reasonable professional place for all of your clients to come to. And when you get to the point where you have enough clients you can support that, for sure, that's what you should do.
That makes sense. It's a very logical order of events. So when did you move into that shop then? Like what's the earliest that I would have seen your sign?
Well, it was December of 2019 that we got the sign.
Okay.
And we were setting up the place late summer through the fall.
Okay.
We did some renovations there.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. So did you buy that place or you were renting it?
No, we were renting it. It used to be a railroad building.
Okay.
And the other big buildings behind it also had railroad symbols on them, so they must have all been connected to the railroad.
Yeah, they all had those little spurs where they can get deliveries and ship by rail car.
Yeah, so it was really interesting. The reason I ended up there was because I could afford it. Mm-hmm. And this was me trying to get the business out of my home, kind of scared that what if this fails? Will I be able to pay it off and get out of this?
Yeah, it's smart to think that way.
Right.
To not go straight for, let's get the high traffic spot in an expensive neighborhood right on Main Street.
Absolutely.
You don't have to go straight to that.
So
That's
one of the logical pieces of that was, well, she's been successful with getting customers out of her apartment.
Yep.
So we actually discourage walk-ins.
Yep.
And so if we were more present on the road, where you pay a premium to be on the road, then we would be paying for walk-ins, and we don't like walk-ins.
Which is what you don't want.
And so so the logic behind that was, well, we get most of our business through, we get most of our business by phone call and the website, right?
Yeah.
And so it was just a natural step because, like you said, it's in the middle of this industrial park. People are always kind of, oh, you're all the way back here? That's so weird. But
yeah.
They didn't mind when she was in her apartment, so... Or they were okay with that.
Yeah, that's a good thing to remind yourself.
Yeah.
That clearly we don't need the super visible spot.
Yes.
The business doesn't depend on that.
Yeah.
So thanks to Nick, we got to a point where we were way more professional online than we were in person.
Right.
And people were starting to
Which
be
is
like,
a big deal
is
today.
this
I mean,
legit?
people would have scoffed at that 20 years ago. But it really is more important for so many businesses now.
So then we tried
a good,
to make
clean online presence.
Yeah.
And I think another really big thing that is just a consistent emphasis on reputation, you know?
Yep.
I have always thought if you serve a really good quality product, you know, and you just, you know, make yourself available, work hard, the business is going to come. You know, for example... one of our big strategies was at search engine optimization.
Yep.
And so, how do you? All the trees are falling down around us. How do you end up? How do we become more visible? So, search engine optimization is where you rank higher in search results.
Right.
When people search for.
Alterations. It's sort of providing the search engine with whatever information
and
increases the likelihood that people are going to find you.
One of the best strategies out there is your Google My Business.
Yeah.
I don't know how familiar you are with that, but that's essentially when you're looking up restaurants near me, you see these map listings saying like, oh, Wendy's, McDonald's, whatever it may be. And so my big emphasis with Elizabeth was, okay, how can we get your seamstress shop to show up higher and rank up higher
than your competitors who are certainly around.
Yeah, and it just takes a long time to ask for reviews, post your photos, have a good website.
Yeah.
And so originally we did do search ads. We paid like $30 a month just to try to get in front of people.
Yep.
But eventually we had to turn them off. So we've only had them on probably 2 times in the course of, 2 periods of time where she was looking for work. We haven't had them on in over a year.
Yeah.
So it's
which is a good position to be in.
Yeah.
When all right, now it's feeding itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha. So as you get involved with all this, obviously after college, since you were studying econ.
Yep.
How do you step into doing it for a living?
Oh yeah,
that's not a single hop. I'm sure.
It was kind of a hobby for a little bit at the end of college. I actually.
And are you helping companies or friends' companies? Just kind of whoever?
Yeah, freelancing, building a couple websites using Wix.com.
There you go.
Some of those easy builders, and also just kind of learning it. One thing funny about business is, you just gotta kind of fake it till you make it a little bit.
Yep.
And just be confident and always keep trying to do better. And so at the end of college, I had already been interning with Great American Insurance.
Yep.
And I ended up deciding, I ended up getting a position there. But just, I realized like I wasn't doing marketing. I was doing insurance, like underwriting. And it just wasn't my passion. Really, the marketing was where my passions were. And unfortunately, insurance companies are typically a little behind the times with marketing. And so I ended up getting I didn't even apply to this position. I was networking with a friend, and they connected me to this company called U.S. Digital Partners.
Okay.
That's where I got in there as a digital marketing analyst.
Okay.
And really, for over 2 years, I worked there, had some great mentorship, and just continued to learn more and more about website best practices, digital advertising with Google, Facebook, all those ads that are, following you around after you.
Yeah, so you're slowly becoming a one-stop shop for what would probably could be separate jobs.
Yeah,
but you're trying to collect all of them in one toolbox.
I would say that I'm not a designer, I'm not a developer, like coding and all that.
Yeah.
But I'm really invested in a good website, and I'm really invested in like a good, user experience and all that, because if the website's not good, then my ads aren't going to do good.
Yeah.
So it all kind of connects for me.
Yeah.
And so I ended up, after 2 years, deciding to join with some other guys and with their startup, and where I continued to do the same thing, but even more of a, I guess you could say, a step towards being more independent,
Yep.
And so just continue to learn more and more. Had, once again, always having these great mentors, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
With these different companies. So yeah, that's kind of how I developed my background expertise. I mean, I wouldn't say I know everything at all, but as I said before, it's not as much about what you know, it's more about asking the right questions.
Yeah.
So how can we do this better? Have you tried this? Not being afraid to, ask those dumb questions,
Yeah,
sometimes.
of course. And to just see where the research leads you.
Yeah, and, can we test things, or how can we achieve the best result at the lowest cost, like, the lowest hanging fruit, right?
Yeah.
So maybe it's not to get that $10,000 billboard. Maybe we should instead invest in, Google or digital marketing ads because it's cheaper.
Yeah.
Or
That's
whatever.
a really good point, because I, without Nick, might have wasted a bunch of money doing marketing that wouldn't have been helpful, because I wasn't aware that there's little cheap things you could do.
Of course. Yeah, like little targeted Facebook ads and stuff like that like your average person it's not going to be the first thing they think of. They're going to think of the old school stuff, an ad in the newspaper.
Yeah, and I think that's and then I also think you had to prioritize things too. It's like, I guess there's always short and long-term plans, right?
Yeah.
Because, when you're building up a brand, you also, you don't want to just put all of your money in and just be gambling too much, right? You want to be conservative, but still aggressive. I've changed a little bit my philosophy. For example, Elizabeth, when she was doing her nannying, her elderly care, she was still building up her business at the same time. Yeah. So she was still meeting her bills. Yeah. She was still paying her bills. Yeah. She was still able to, but at the same time, building up this company. Yeah. And I would never recommend people just to plunge without.
Yeah. You hear those stories, and they might make for an exciting, podcast or documentary or whatever. Yeah. But in general, I don't advise anybody to just quit your job and go all in on a maybe. Don't do that.
A lot of businesses fail. That's why, like what he said about proving the concept matters so much. You have to know that you've got something that can make it before you decide to...
Yeah, before you go signing leases and buying vehicles or heavy equipment or whatever.
Or expecting it to support your family, or, And Nick is so into all of these business ideas, and he will talk to people, bounce ideas off of them. He's changed his entire concept on some of them just because certain things don't pass inspection when they
that
they
makes
don't meet up
sense.
to scrutiny.
Exactly. I'm reminded of, like, the wife and I used to have a bunch of rental property, and we're actually where they just ran off to is we're about to sell the last one.
Wow.
And it's got a few hours worth of work left to do. But but I had a friend actually recently ask about that. He's like, "Man, I know you guys used to own a bunch of rental property. I'm thinking about getting some." And basically exactly what you just described is what I told him. I was like, "Man, you got to ease into it. Don't just buy a whole bunch and hope this is going to work and think you're going to quit your job right away. Like, you have to go through a phase where you own some and you're getting awfully busy,
Yeah.
And you're not getting a lot of sleep.
50 to 60 hours.
But ease over that line. And then, if you want to go all in at a point, you can push it to the point where you can live off of it and then quit working at that point and just do this full time. But, don't rush into that. That's where horror stories come from about it all coming crashing down and ending in bankruptcy. So ease into it and just have those nights where you don't get a lot of sleep for a few years because you're basically maintaining the career and the rental properties, and keep that up as long as you can stand it. Yeah. And then when you finally can't stand it anymore, now pull the trigger and go all in.
Yeah. The question I like to ask people is, what's your bare minimum? Like, what do you need to pay the bills to break even? Right.
Yeah. And it's shocking how many people don't know that number.
And it's actually and it's also shocking how it's actually kind of low. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
when you really start adding it up, we don't need that, don't need that, we can get rid of cable, and suddenly you're down to a pretty low number for most people.
Elizabeth's cousin's talking about starting an event venue at his, he has some property. Yeah. And I said to him, well, what's your bare minimum? And then, of course, he states that. And I said, okay, well, what can you do to achieve that? Maybe work a part-time, maybe 20 hours, 30 hours a week. Yeah. Hey, guess what? You got 10 hours now to work on your dream every week, or 10 to 20, right? Now, great. You're making your bare minimum. And then once you do eventually start getting some revenue from your business venture, guess what? That's all going to start profiting you. And then eventually you can slowly take away your part-time gig and make that your full-time gig, you know, or whatever. At some point, you probably do need to take a little jump, but still.
Exactly. Instead of I mean, I'm with almost every business, even if they eased into it in this way. Yeah. There definitely was a point where it was sort of like jumping off a diving board, where it was like, I think we're going to do this. Like, we're going to go all in. So even though we've already proven it works, but it's time to take a plunge. And I don't know, I don't think there's many businesses where you can truly ease all the way into doing it full time. There will be a leap.
Yes. Yeah, it can be a little scary. I'd always advise, be smart with your money, know your numbers. Don't do anything that exceeds your rainy day fund. Like when I moved to the storefront, I knew that if this failed, I could pay all of the rent and get out of it and do something else in my life. But there's not going to sink you. There's a chance that it might succeed, and the thousands of dollars in rent that I'm spending might be for something. Yeah. So, and it's totally worth it to go after your dream. I know. I guess I just want people to be inspired. That if there's something you want to do, you probably can give it a try. And Nick and I, we were able to take some more risks when we were single because we didn't have anyone depending on us. Yeah. But you know what? Like we lived our life. We got married, then we had a baby, and now we have a little person that's depending on us. So we do need some money, actually, and a home and things that we didn't need as much before. But
even someone in your shoes now, you're just talking about stretching the timeline out a little bit. Right. Ultimately, they could do what you did with kids. It's just not. It's probably not going to happen as fast. It's not the
your
end
rainy
of the
day
world
fund,
if it takes a little bit longer.
You're minimal. It matters a lot more when you have children because you need to make sure that you feed them and get clothes for them and things like that.
Of course.
But we're doing it, and I think Nick is happier just working part-time and realizing his dream, and eventually he's going to go full-time for the dream. And then, maybe that will inspire our daughter someday to be able to go after her dreams.
Heck yeah. That's the hope.
And hopefully in the meantime, things will settle down for us a little bit. We won't be working overtime all the time, and I'll be able to really be with her more.
Right.
But it gave us the opportunity to have an in-office nanny. I can go visit Zelly at work. I can nurse her.
Yeah.
Things like that.
That is so awesome. So, I haven't seen the new space yet, but you've told me a little bit about it. What's the difference in square footage again?
Yeah.
As far as what you're going from and to?
Yeah, we're going from 1,000 square feet to 2,400.
Okay.
So, it's... we were actually looking for a little bit more than that, but honestly, we're going to be using it everything extremely well. There's not going to be a wasted space in it, which is great because everything has its place. Right now, in our current place, there's pretty much 3 seamstress stations when we have 4 to 5 seamstresses. Yeah. So it's definitely a little cramped.
Of course. There's reaching over each other or waiting for each other to finish something so you can have the space.
Yep. And my office became the lunchroom. And
that's where we sat down and talked when I stopped in.
Yep.
So the lunchroom,
that is
the
cramped.
nanny's room, the nursery. The lunchroom, the nursery, and Nick's office with his employee were all the same 10 by 10 room. And it was just somebody would be having lunch, somebody would be changing a diaper on a screaming baby, and Nick would be trying to have a call, and it would just be so distressing.
Yeah, of course.
So now we'll have a dedicated space for everything.
Yeah.
But sometimes with startups, you have to do things like that because that's what I could afford 2 years ago. So we did this for a while.
Of course, it's just another step like working out of your house. It's just a small step down that same road.
Yeah. With this new place, it's in East Walnut Hills. We're moving there, pretty close to Eden Park. Yeah. And so probably only 10 minutes from the current location, but it's definitely going to be a huge improvement because what really matters to us isn't as much about the location, as you can tell with the industrial park.
Right.
It's what really matters to us is the comfort and the just good atmosphere that we have for our employees. Yeah. Because
and our clients.
Of course, clients.
Yeah.
There's some grungy sewing places.
But
right. Oh, that doesn't surprise me actually because of the fact that there doesn't need to be an emphasis on a beautiful storefront. Some people can probably go too far the other way.
Yeah.
And be like, well, it doesn't really matter if this place looks like a hellhole because I'm still going to get work.
Or
the employees is so important though because I personally just, now that we have them, I don't know, maybe I'm a little hypersensitive about it, but now that we have employees, and also that sewing is kind of a dying art. Yeah. There's less and less people that know how to sew. That's why it's so important to us. It's we don't want to waste time with having turnover. We want people to have a good and comfortable environment because then it's also comfortable for us and them. And then they're more likely to want to stay 1 to 5 years, way longer than
of course.
We want them to make a career out of it if possible.
Yeah. If they all stayed for 20 years, that'd be fantastic.
Amazing. Yeah.
Well, I mean, your head's in the right place.
Yeah.
As far as that is.
While we're on the topic,
taking care of people and.
While we're on the topic of staff members, I just also wanted to say I think it's employers are in such a special place because you're doing something for people and giving them an opportunity to to have industry, to be to learn a skill and to do something worthwhile with their life, to provide for their family. There's a lot of things that are special about your role as a team leader or as an employer, and that I take that really seriously because I was an employee and I know what makes a nice environment. I'm trying so hard not to get too far away from that experience so I can provide a good experience for everyone to work there. Because I really do care.
Of course. Nobody wants to be that boss that seems to not remember what it was like to be the employee.
And if I do nothing else in my life, if the business breaks even, and I was able to take care of these people for a while and give them something good that was worth it.
Yeah. That's awesome. But hopefully it does a little better than break even.
Yeah, we're actually we're actually doing fantastic. I don't want to be like too enthusiastic and say, oh, we're majorly successful, but I think we're definitely on the right track.
I bet it's greatly exceeding what you thought was possible 5 years ago.
Absolutely. Nick had someone that said a successful business, your business isn't successful until it can be left alone and run without you.
Yeah.
So you have to
that's a good way to measure it, because otherwise you're sort of a glorified self-employed person.
Right.
If you can't get it, if you can't push it over that line.
Yeah, so we're getting close.
And that was the big push behind when we were having Zelly, or once we found out, was, okay, how can we make this work and still, like, the business work and still have Zelly and take care of Zelly as well.
Yeah.
Like, take 24 hours off to have a baby.
Right. Yeah.
So, and have people's wedding dresses get done.
Yeah.
So, I think we realized, wow, okay, we really should hire, and we should really get you to start being more supervisor and really start getting you to be more into the training, like doing owner things.
Yeah.
As opposed to, like taxes. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
Just kidding. So getting to do owner things as opposed to doing like the small things that maybe someone else would love to be able to do.
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. So when I'm sitting at the front desk answering emails or answering the phone, or if I'm sewing for 40 hours, the business isn't growing.
Yeah.
I need to be managing it and training people and looking to the future and making a 5-year plan, or we're stagnant, right?
That's a good lesson, I think, for anyone who wonders how effective, productive people do what they do. That you just nailed it.
Delegate.
They are, exactly. but it's that they're splitting their time between immediate needs and future growth, and they're not robbing all of that future growth time, spending it typing on a computer or doing the sewing. In your case, some portion of your days or weeks has to be forward looking. And if you can't figure out how to carve off a little bit of time so that you're looking off into the horizon and figuring out how we're going to get this thing, over the next hurdle, then again, I come back to you're sort of doomed to stay a more glorified self-employed person. Not a true business owner.
Are counting on you to do that stuff, so you need to be doing it.
Because they benefit as well. But it's not just that, okay, you're going to make more money. Yeah, but you're going to bring them along for the ride. So they stand to benefit if you are spending time looking off into the distance, figuring out how we're going to get this thing to the next benchmark.
And another mistake people make is that they're so protective of their quality or their craft or whatever it is that they're doing in their business, that they're not willing to let somebody else also do it, or to hire anybody, or to pass on their trade. And then that really stagnates you. You can't really have a business. You can't really grow into anything if you're not willing to take the leap that might sacrifice some of your quality, and do your best to raise those new staff members to the quality that you were able to do alone.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan. I don't know if you've seen the TV show The Prophet.
I have not.
Profit.
Okay.
And it's very good. It's about this I think billionaire Marcus, Lemonis. He has a TV show where he goes into failing businesses, or struggling ones, and of course he kind of buys into him as a partner. It's very cool show.
So that I already like that better as a premise than like
Shark Tank.
And or what was even worse, the one where was it Gordon Ramsay?
Oh yeah,
would go in and try to turn these restaurants around.
I watched
without any
Yeah.
buy-in. And then the story gets out, of course, years later that damn near all those places tanked in the end. None of them made it.
What typically he does is he will, of course, buy into them, like pay money, invest his own money, and get some equity because it's worth his while.
Of course.
And then what he would do is provide his expertise or his professional services for that company to take him from failing or almost like bankrupt to hopefully the next steps. Obviously, it sometimes fails. I mean, that always happens. But, I mean, one of the things you see so often is a lot of these business owners, they aren't humble. You know what I mean? And, like, you know.
To put it politely.
Yeah. And I'm not saying we're humble, but
right.
I'm just trying to say that it's so important to be, like, open to, like, ways to do things better. And not to, like, completely, like, wrap your identity up with one, like, oh, this is the best way to do it.
Especially if your business is failing. I mean, you kind of have to look at the numbers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's painful when you see that, and someone is just bound and determined. I'll tell you what the problem is. It's the customers. They just, it's their fault for not coming here. Well,
I agree.
Really?
I agree. And we just feel that. Yeah, and we just feel obviously we're not perfect or anything, but it's definitely so important to keep that open mind.
Of course. Yeah, you obviously don't want to get bogged down in, well, we do it this way because that's the way I've always done it.
I'm so
really?
close
Like you
to
can't
that.
Entertain changing something up that you might be wrong about?
You have to be so careful. I've literally only been doing this for 6 years. I've had this amount of staff for less than a year, and I'm already like, oh, let's just do it this way because this is how I always do it. And you have to be so careful to be humble, be open to growth, open to new ideas, and to not be that guy that stagnates his business because he's not willing to listen to his office manager who has a good idea.
Right.
Well, you should say about what you originally wanted to start with, St. Clare's Closet.
What you mean as far as products or?
Well, originally
like in the way beginning, I was making little christening gowns. I wanted to do like more religious stuff and like altered linens.
Gotcha. Well, that makes sense because you would have had to be pretty widespread as it was a small business. You couldn't say, well, I only do this.
Well, yeah, it turns out that once in a while you get somebody that wants a christening gown made out of an old wedding dress, and that's kind of a special heirloom thing.
Yeah.
But you can't make a living doing that. So that didn't hold up to scrutiny. So then I had to change my business model. And I said I did not want to do wedding dresses. Too much drama. No way. But, I did a wedding dress. And the girls are like so sweet. And you feel so special being part of that special moment in their life. That the amount of drama is far inferior to the joy of being able to do this.
Yeah.
And that's how you can make a living in this industry because that's what people want the most. And then I can still do the vestments or the christening gowns or things like that I want to do. I can offer that service, and once or twice a year someone will ask for it, but I can be paying my employees doing the other stuff.
Of course. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's cool how that is just sort of organically develop in that way.
Yeah.
One time I needed to submit a copy of my business plan to I was applying for a legal clinic at UC.
Okay.
And I went and I read it because I figured I'd better update it, and I wasn't doing anything that was on that thing.
Oh yeah.
I thought, oh my gosh, I've really changed my model here.
You forget how far you've come.
Yeah, that this whole business plan that was on my computer at the time was obsolete. That's not even what we ended up doing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool though. I think it's kind of exciting to look back and realize that like we've actually come a long way. It was just in these little small steps that you did that you don't really notice or you don't remember until you sit down and take a minute.
Mm-hmm. That legal program, by the way, was so helpful. It paired a law student with a startup business.
Oh, that's neat.
And you got them to do legal work for you for a semester, and it was free, but we had to apply for it.
Yeah.
And I didn't get in the first time I tried, but I got in the second time, and then I got paired with this really nice law student who wrote up my work order contract and my my contracts for my employees, so that everybody would be protected. Everything is legal.
That's cool.
And it really, that's important.
And it gets them the experience. So overall, obviously, you're happy with what you got out of the deal.
Absolutely. And I think that UC did something amazing there. And I think that their law program, from what I've seen, has some really special components. So I'm so grateful to them for doing that. I know the top guy when I was there, I think he's retired, but I hope they're still doing the same stuff.
Right. Now, Nick, you mentioned that you've got an employee. Is this employee doing exactly what you do, or have you sort of divided off different projects or assignments for this person?
Yeah, so I hired my first full-time employee for my own startup. Her role was actually really particular in like design. Okay. So she's helping me in terms of like websites. She's helping Elizabeth like with branding. Yeah. She's helping Elizabeth with her St. Clair's Closet in terms of like even just having a better artistic eye for decorating our storefront. And
neat.
She's
and so that's her background. Her education is in design.
Yep, design. I actually have worked with her in the past. Okay. And it was just really great timing. I just was like, wow, I'm.
Were you coworkers or just on a project?
Coworkers at actually the one firm I was at after Great American. Okay. And so we had worked together, and I was getting a lot of design projects, and I was personally a little overwhelmed. And so I was like, okay, I need to ask her to come in because, you know, it's funny when she looks at some of my websites. I'm not a designer by trade. And she's just like, nope, we're redoing it. And I was like, darn it.
She doesn't pull her punches.
No, and she's just like, darn it. I'm not that good as I thought.
Yeah.
I obviously that's where you have to be humble, you know. It's like,
well, of course. I mean, if you want to grow something, you can't be the best at everything. So, like, you just have to learn to bring the right people in. Yep. And then you just got to go with what they say.
Yep. And I have some other people that I call upon for like coding development. I would say like my role is, like I said, my professional background was advertising, SEO, those kind of things, maybe like overall like website best practices. But I definitely do lean upon, I do really believe like, okay, I'm not a designer. I need a designer to do this, or I'm not a developer. I need a developer to do this, you know, coding and all that. Yeah. And so I'm really a strong believer in you should do what you do best, and you should ask other people who are in that skill set to do what they do best.
Right.
And so,
because if you try to do everything, it all suffers.
Yes.
Exactly. I don't care what business you're in.
Exactly.
Like with your story before about, like, you know, how if you can't just turn the reins over once in a while, you're really limiting the growth of the company. I used to be a contractor, and mostly carpentry, but did some other construction stuff too. And I used to laugh when I'd be at like a bigger job where there's lots of other contractors working at the same time, that like you would see some where there's a guy that, you know, maybe one helper, maybe none. And the thing that always made me laugh was guys that like have to roll their own extension cords because it has to be perfect the way I do it. And that and like that was this little microcosm for why that business is never going to get big.
Oh, sorry.
If you can't just trust other people to do some of this work, then man, it's only 24 hours in a day.
I know.
How many nails can you drive by yourself? You got to get past this, needing to do everything yourself to this very, very particular standard. And that's it. It's a matter of bringing the right people, train them, or bring in people who've been trained already, and then you got to just let them do what they do.
Yep. Yeah. Don't micromanage. That's another huge issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah. I mean, yeah. Like I said, you like you were saying, actually, it was just you can't micromanage. You got to let people do what they do best, even if it's a little bit different. I mean, you obviously can offer suggestions, but it's at the end of the day, like, you need to trust your people.
Well, yeah, because I think anybody who's managed employees for any length of time, if they were open to going with an employee's idea that maybe they didn't really actually like in their own gut, you do that a few times and you realize that you're wrong sometimes.
Yep.
That, like, they brought this idea up. I really didn't like it. I thought it was a bad idea and that it's not going to work. But you let them run with it, and it works sometimes. And you're like, that's my reminder to myself that sometimes I'm wrong about what I think the better idea is. So that just gives you more confidence in letting people do what they do.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to sew things. So we try to have an atmosphere of collaboration where it's very open and is if anybody has a sliver of a doubt, say to your other team members, what would be the most best way to do this so that it does look the most perfect that it can.
Yeah.
And everybody's coming from different environments, so there's a lot of different ways that they like to do things. So usually I let it go, and if it works, it works. And sometimes I take on some of those practices because I think they're better. Then the question is, how do you manage quality? And sometimes I do have to check something and we realize, all right, that really didn't work. We really have to undo this and do it again the other way because it looked better that way.
Yeah.
And it's kind of deflating to do that, or to have to ask someone to go backwards on the work they did.
Of course. But yeah, I've a few different times I've helped train newer truck drivers, and I'm reminded of, like, training people in backing, which is just doesn't come easy to everyone. It's just, but it's unfortunately a hurdle you just got to get over if you're going to do that for a living. I think that a lesson that somebody taught me, I want to say it was my dad, and it wasn't even specific to driving trucks or backing trailers, but it applies perfectly well, was that I've always tried to teach newer drivers, wait until you witness somebody about to do what it is you're trying to learn to do. So in this case, back a trailer in. And if they start to do it exactly the way you would do it, fine, but there's not really anything to learn there. But the second you see them start to do something that's the opposite of what you normally do, like you zero in. All right, this is different. That is not what I would have done. So either it's going to be worse than your way, and you just saw, though, another alternative. Once in a while, though, it's going to shock you at how much better than your way it is. And you're going to file it away and be like, oh, I never would have thought of that. That is so much better than the way I would have done it. And if you aren't allowing those conversations to happen, then, like, how much on-the-job education are you stifling?
Absolutely.
By not allowing it.
Yeah.
Because everybody in the shop, I'm sure, has things that where their way is the best. And they need to be allowed to teach that to each other. So that, oh man, her way is the best of doing that, and her way is the best of doing that.
Yeah.
And if you're open to that, and you don't constantly shut it down with, no, I'm the owner, and I say this is the way we do it, and we are not discussing this, then, all right, but there was some free education was about to take place in that room.
Right.
Had you allowed that conversation to happen.
Yeah. So be humble and then use your critical thinking skills. You know, maybe that guy did back the truck in better than you, or maybe he didn't and your way's still fine.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. But be open-minded about it. And yeah, that's got to be I mean, I'm sure that's just a universal thing for all business owners.
I've had a little collaboration with other seamstresses, and I tell you what, it's a little nerve-wracking putting yourself up against someone else and saying, wow, how do we compare? Are we doing what you're doing? Are we doing it better or worse?
Right.
It's a little scary to, do that.
So do you get a chance to compare notes with other shops around town at all? Like, do you know any of your competitors?
We can't disclose too much, but we considered buying another seamstress shop. Actually.
Okay, yeah, you mentioned that the day that we sat down and talked. Just that idea had been floated.
Yeah, it did. We were kind of wondering, where are we going to get more staff to be able to do something,
right? Rather than this whole one at a time thing.
A lot of our competitors are older than me. They're getting ready to retire or going on sabbaticals, and so I thought, would it be worth it to buy one? We decided to buy a storefront instead and hire our own employees, and that ended up being what worked for us. But my one employee had a friend that had a seamstress shop in Florida, and she was actually up visiting, and we were able to meet each other and bounce ideas off.
That's awesome.
I shared some things that I'd figured out to help her, and she did that for me, and I really appreciate that because we're both trying to do our best here. We're on opposite sides of the country. We're not going to hurt each other.
Well, so my dad's a business consultant, and he used to do a lot of that. He would get these groups of folks together who do the same job as each other in totally different markets for exactly that purpose. And he'd bring them to a hotel conference center or something in one city for a few weekends. And that was the whole point. Is you got nothing to lose by sharing your secrets in this room.
Absolutely.
You're not coming after each other's customers. So let's compare the exact conversation we're talking about. How do you do this? How do you do this? All right, his way is better. You should do it his way. And you're able to have that open-minded conversation.
Yeah, I'm so nervous to call him up and
so are you staying in touch beyond that initial meeting, or did you really get all your questions answered at that?
Yeah, so it happened recently, but I've definitely come up with a couple of things where I thought, I should email her. But there's also in our industry, in the sewing industry, there's more than enough work to go around. I'm afraid that there's some girls that aren't getting their dresses altered because there isn't enough seamstresses out there to do it. So, what do you got to lose even talking to your neighbor? There's still too much work for everyone.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. And until it gets to be otherwise,
we're not fighting.
Why not go ahead and just compare notes?
Yeah.
Especially with stuff like, running the business points, stuff that doesn't even really have to do with dealing with customers. Things like dealing with employees and tax issues. And there's so much where you can compare notes, and you're not really aiding the enemy in any way. You're just helping each other run a business and deal with employees.
One of the things that's interesting about me is that I came into the industry on my own. I didn't work under anybody. I didn't start out at David's Bridal or anything like that. So there's some things that I don't know about how the industry functions, and it really doesn't affect so much how you sew the dress because it's kind of sewing is its own skill, but also what do other people's dressing rooms look like? What is their experience? How many fittings do they do? Like things like that. That I'm not 100% sure. What is everyone else doing? So I'm just really, really am hungry for the opportunity to talk to anyone. To learn what they do, to share what I do, because I think some ways it hurts me, in some ways it benefits me. Like I thought, I ended up making a more boutique style fitting experience. Some dressing rooms in other places are a lot more small, a lot more closet-like, maybe not big enough to hold a wedding dress, kind of awkward and cramped.
Yeah.
And that's not really the experience that I wanted for my clients, whether or not it's the industry standard. I want to be what I want to be.
Yeah, you can certainly get poisoned with too much information about how everybody else is doing something. And you can get sort of locked into, like, I don't know, I guess I'm not sure why I did it that way. It's just what everyone else was doing.
Right.
So I didn't even think about it. I just copied them. Whereas maybe on some of those finer points, you would have come up with something better if they'd done it your way.
Yeah.
Which is just kind of figure it all out for yourself, and you might actually improve on.
Yeah, but then there's other things that I learned that I could do better. Like, there's some better pieces of equipment than what I was using. So I said, well, all right, I'm going to go to the dealer and check them out.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where, obviously, I mean, some comparing notes with others in the same business seems like it may be able to really improve the learning curve on some of those points.
Yeah, I'm so grateful to the other girl her name was Marilyn, and I think her business is Sewing by Marilyn. If anyone's in Florida and wants to check her out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you may have a future in franchising out your operation.
We have
maybe that's in the future of, like, hey, we kind of got this down.
We did.
I could teach other people to do this now.
We did talk about opening up a second location. In the future, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
you never know. And
the sky's the limit.
Yep. Sewing is a little harder, as I said. I think the biggest issue is the talent issue. But if you can overcome that. Yeah, definitely could be a good thing. I guess I didn't say much about Magis Guild. That's my company.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm okay with saying, like, I think that it's...
And that's your startup?
Startup, yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
And the whole purpose behind it is how can we help people... Magis, I guess I'll go into the name. Why Magis Guild? Magis means, in Latin, greater or more.
Okay.
And then guild comes from... I mean, most people know what guilds are, but... It means craftsmen who come together for a common purpose.
Gotcha.
And so what we're trying to do is a bunch, like we have designers, you got me, like the SEO guy.
Right,
we got coders and, even other professionals like accountants and others all coming together.
So you're the point of contact, though.
Yes.
And then you have this team.
Yes, exactly. Or even if they're not on my team, just people I can refer out, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's... what I want to make my niche in is how to help startups kind of accelerate that growth. A lot of people are familiar with business incubators. Where you get to go and talk about your idea. But what I want to do is, and this is common, is have a business accelerator where essentially, maybe you have this passion or desire for, for example, for Elizabeth, she had the passion and desire for sewing. Yeah. But maybe she didn't have that skill set of marketing, or maybe that skill set of this or this. Right. And so, I think it's great if she she should focus on sewing and then let somebody else kind of help her with the marketing. Yeah. As opposed to her trying to master everything. Yeah. And so I think that's one of the biggest things that slow down the growth of businesses is the ability to, have the right skill sets to call upon to help push you kind of to that next level, right? Yep. So that's kind of what Magis Guild is for, is trying to help those people, like, either help their current businesses out, or even if somebody has like a passion or dream, helping them get off the ground. Yeah. So you'd be up for that as well. Yeah. Getting them started from day one. Yep. And I actually have a couple people. I have some of my own business ideas, but I also have I have a physical therapy clinic that I'm partnering with. Yeah. She's starting this out. She just started. She actually has her first client this coming week. So that's pretty cool. That's cool. And so I helped her with a lot of her website stuff, her legal stuff. Gonna help her with her accounting stuff. So that way she can just focus on the physical therapy side. Yeah. As opposed to getting, bogged down by doing everything else. Right. So, yeah, that's the dream, is how can we how can we kind of help individuals achieve those goals?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's cool. It's exciting too, because you're gonna end up touching a lot of businesses that are gonna go on to do really cool things.
I hope, yeah.
And you'll have been a part of getting them there.
Yeah, and I think it's of course, like, it's exciting because I also have my own ideas. Like, without going into too much detail, I would love to start a coffee shop. That's like in my future. I'm hoping.
Yep.
And it's really cool because, essentially, what I'm trying to do is build up my team for my own, and my team will help support those other ventures.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or help support.
It's funny how often actually entrepreneurs end up starting multiple businesses because they find that they've sort of got the bug for it. And once that first success is up and flying, there's something in their brain just yearns to do it again, and again, and again, and that's obviously a very real phenomenon for them. For some people, just have that itch where they like building planes and getting them off the ground.
Yep,
it's exciting, it's thrilling.
Yeah.
So I've known a few, even just in my family, that have done that, and it's just sort of on to the next big thing. Hey, what are you up to now? They're going to name something totally unrelated to what we last talked about 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think your mind doesn't shut off, and I think Elizabeth will, definitely commented to other people, like, Nick's always thinking of good and bad ideas because the ideas don't stop.
Well, you have to throw them out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he has some bad business ideas.
And
sometimes
so
I have to tell him it's not legal.
I've had plenty of horrible ones.
Oh yeah.
But you have to be open to just brainstorming because honestly, there's some very successful businesses today that probably sounded asinine when the person first said them out loud. But then they maybe gave it a minute and were like, no, actually, I think that could work.
Or maybe from this angle, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you look at these McDonald's. I don't know if you've seen the recent, like, the Founder movie on Netflix.
Okay. No, I haven't watched it, but yeah, I saw it.
Everybody, it's the McDonald's fast food concept, was very foreign to most people at the time. That was just
absolutely
like what you have to watch this movie, but it's amazing. Like I think the whole idea of like putting your burger in the paper.
Oh yeah.
And like having everything disposable instead of like serving it on plates, glass plates.
Even that would have been hard, I guess, for a lot of people to wrap their mind around.
At the time, it was. Yeah. And so I definitely don't encourage anybody who wants to pursue their idea. I don't think you shouldn't let people discourage you. You know what I mean?
Right.
It just obviously. Always listen to what they have to say.
Which, as we talked about, if you're starting small and modest, you're really not going to sink your ship if you just give it a try.
And prove the concept.
Yeah, go ahead and goof around with this idea that may be insane.
Oh, yeah.
But, like, you don't have to go in... with most ideas, you don't have to go super deep in debt.
No.
In order to give it a little try.
Yeah, always... like I said, prove the concept. Find out if customers actually want it. You know, and then just see what happens. And, for Elizabeth, I would say it took, 3 or 4 years. It probably could have been faster if she would have dove right in. But I would say,
but there's a risk there. That not everyone has a stomach for that level of risk. I don't.
And I personally am learning a lot every day, and you learn as you go, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I want to take what I've learned with working with Elizabeth with her business.
Yeah.
And kind of help share that with others.
Yeah.
It's okay if people don't like your product. You can always redo your idea. I mean, I wasn't able to make a business off of what I started with, but I was able to make a business off of something else, and it's okay. It's no
of course
thing on you or anything.
Yeah, I mean, there are all kinds of fun success stories from the past for people who like, the stories of like these huge companies and how they had their beginnings. Wasn't Levi Strauss? Theirs was a plan B that got them off the ground. Plan A was, I believe, clothing, and they'd bought a bunch of material in somewhere in Europe, I think in England, and had it shipped over by boat, and it was all stolen or lost or something. None of it made it. And but they had some cash left, and they were able to buy boat sails. So they bought a bunch of old boat sails and started sewing them into mining clothes because the gold rush was going on in California. And miners just wanted super duper rugged clothes because they were just tearing up all of their regular store-bought clothes. Mm-hmm. So they said, well, this stuff's cheap and it's super tough. So we're just going to start making overalls and pants and stuff out of old boat sails. And I guess it was just grasping at straws because the whole plan A didn't work. And everybody knows who Levi Strauss is now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's through that struggle that, the first idea doesn't work, second idea doesn't work, but just keep going.
Exactly.
Through the struggle is you find innovation.
If you keep grinding,
yeah,
you'll find a way.
Yep. And there's always a better way. You know what I mean? You always got to be. I mean, that's one of the big things about entrepreneurship is there's always a better way to do things. You should always never stop innovating, never stop asking those questions.
Yeah.
And I mean, you obviously are. Yeah, you have to take those leaps at some point,
Yep.
Another show we watched was Undercover Billionaire. And I guess this is what entrepreneurs do at night. They watch business shows.
Of course.
But Undercover Billionaire was pretty good, especially
when you make your first billion,
season.
you can let me know if you started watching shows like that. They're like, yeah, it's true. I just next thing you know, I'm glued to these shows. So
it was pretty good, especially the first season that we really liked. And the guy on there was saying you need to find your market and then make your product. So I think I've definitely seen a lot of businesses, especially crafter type businesses, that they like making something and then they
go looking for a market for it.
Yeah, I'm going to sell it. But it might turn out that there's not a market for that. And that's totally okay. It doesn't mean that you're not good at your craft. It doesn't mean that your product isn't amazing. It just might mean that not enough people want to buy that to support your family.
Yeah, so now it's up to you to make a pivot and figure out, well, what does the market want? There's something that it either already wants or that it's open to wanting if I show it to them.
And it happened to me too. Like I found out not everybody wants a very expensive handmade christening gown. That I can't make a living doing that.
Yeah.
But everybody wants to alter their wedding dress.
Yeah. But that's cool to stumble upon that as long as you're open to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Too many people don't, I guess, sort of let that particular version of Dream A, just let it die and move on. Yeah. Let's come up with it. Let's come up with a new dream that makes more sense, given what I now know.
Yeah. Well, thank you for letting us talk.
Oh, you're welcome. This was fun.
Yeah.
What a cool story.
Nick, how can people get a hold of you?
Working on the website right now as we speak. So
okay. I'll certainly put links. Links to both businesses, to St. Clair's Closet and also
Magis
yours.
Guild.
Yeah, and, St. Clair's Closet. Our website is stclairscloset.com.
Yeah.
Convenient.
Excellent.
Always. Business names. Always look for the what domains are available.
Yes.
Hardest part.
Yeah. Absolutely. So anyways, thanks again for coming back for episode 2 of the Camp Pupil Podcast. Keep your eyes open for episode 3. We're going to have Annie Warner out to the camp to talk about her law firm and also just the issues involved with raising a family today.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube or your podcast app of choice to catch new releases. Episode notes along with behind-the-scenes media can be found on our website at campubilpodcast.com.